development here down to the west, and it's an area resulting in 18% of the area being comprised of parkland. As you can see, this is a great vantage point to look around because we have residential to my left here. We have high, medium, and low-rise residential. We have Waterloo Region housing just over here as well. And then as the land slopes down, we have the Peter Hallman Ball Yards, the Activa Sportplex, and there's a high school there as well, and the old rail corridor. We also have the Country Hills Library here, but this space really needs that destination or landmark to give it an identity. So this is one that we really want to, give that placemaking feel to. Public spaces around here, we have the Huron Natural Area, Trainer, Wilson, and Vanier Parks. Neighborhoods are associations is the Alpine, Country Hills, and Kingsdale, Country Hills Community Center, Portland Shelley Community Center, and the Kingsdale Community Center and Association. We also have Rockaway Public School and the Sunshine Montessori School. Other things we have here is a Huron Natural Area, and it's a site of the Neutral First Nations village site around 1500, the year 1500. And that was just down, correct me if I'm wrong here, Kate, but just down beyond the ball yards is where they found remnants of that civilization. Key audiences around here are local residents, transit users, and people driving by, and also students. Themes for the site is students and youth and sports. As you can see, there's lots going on around here from that aspect, and First Nations as well from their early presence here in the area. There's many schools and recreational facilities in the vicinity, which could be reflected in the context or target audience for the art. As the anchor wall designed for Blockline reflects First Nations heritage, many believe that this location could be the best place to reflect the First Nations history and celebrate their culture. Finally, many residents spoke to the need for bolder, eye-catching, bright artwork in this location due to the lack of other amenities in the area. So again, that place-making feel. Just a few quotes on this site. It would be a good site for mobile sculpture, three-dimensional perhaps, with movement. The stop has a good view, large vista to the west side of the city. We have a long and continuing relationship with our local Indigenous peoples, and needs to be reflected in this project. This is the best stop to represent the history and encourage dialogue on Aboriginal relations. It could also speak to the former farmland lost to development, the youth and the vibrancy of the area with the local housing and so on around. Again, sports could be reflected in it as well. So I'll pass it back to Kate for more comment.
I'll give this to Brandon and he'll just help you orient yourself to the site.
If you turn to page 15 in the Call to Artist document, turn it portrait view with the page number on your left corner, bottom corner. Blockline Road there is on the bottom, and then this is the LRT stop we're looking right behind me. So you can see the bases there, the round bases, that's the catenary bases, that's where the middle of the stop platform will be. The first artwork place is just to my left or your right along here, approximately where that Acon truck is parked right now, just to the right of that. The piece just behind that is in the foreground there. Approximately the third pole base there is that middle circle, and then the very back one is just at the just before the Pattison signs there at the very back corner.
Thank you. I'm going to pass this over to Andrea Carswell. Andrea is an archaeologist with Archaeological Research Associates. Come on over. And she is well connected with the First Nations community and knows the First Nations history very well through her work and wants to share that with you.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. So I'm going to do my best to condense 12,000 years of history into a very short period of time. So there's going to be gaps, so feel free to contact me after the fact if you want anything filled in, if there's a specific time period you're interested in or cultural group. So essentially what I'm going to talk about is more the archaeological record of the history of Waterloo region. So for the Waterloo region, the environment played a significant role in shaping the land use patterns. Within the region of Waterloo, the Grand River, the waterways that flowed into it played a key role in the location of First Nations people when they settled. The river was a key source of water and food, both for fishing and for gathering plants, and it served as a major transportation corridor between the Lake Erie and South Central Ontario. So I always tell people it's kind of like the 401. For us now, it was like that for them. They up and down, a lot of groups would communicate that way, and they would also trade. The region of Waterloo also lies in a deciduous forest region, which is an ecological zone that is described as having the most diverse forest wildlife in Ontario. In pre-contact times, which is prior to European arrival, the forests were particularly dense and bountiful, and the First Nations of the region may have used up to, what we believe is up to at least 500 different plant species for food, beverages, food flavorings, medicines, smoking, building materials, fibers, dyes, and basketry. So they used a lot of different materials. They were heavily resourceful, and they utilized the land to the best of their abilities, which was quite able. There are about 900 recorded sites within the region of Waterloo. All of these sites belong to different time periods, and they can have something as simple as a projectile point as well as campsites and full villages. I guess what I'll do is I'll give you a rundown of the early times. So early on, when they first, what are evidences of the first parts of the region, they were here during the subarctic period, between about 9000 BC. So in this, they had to adapt to that cold environment. So they mostly were hunting large game. They had large projectile points to reflect this, but very little is known of this time period because they lived quite lightly on the land. Everything went back to the earth. So really only stone tools are evidence at this point in time. Then as the subarctic regions, everything started to thaw, we started getting more of a deciduous forest, which I had mentioned before. You start to see advancements in technology. They become more semi-sedentary, which means they're not moving around as frequently anymore. They're starting to be able to stay stable because there's resources are heavier in different regions and areas for food and other utilities. Then as this happened, also population started to grow. So then we start branching into what we call the woodland period, which is the richest period in this region, especially in this area, considering the Huron Natural Area, which everyone had mentioned. If you go there, there is an archaeological display there, and you can go down to where the longhouses used to be. Just gonna flip my page, sorry. So, with the woodland period, we see major development of maize and corn. So this allowed them to have an agricultural society where they spanned a lot of space, they used a lot of land, and they started developing longhouses that could consist up to 2,500 people and could be as long as 100 meters. So this is at odds with a lot of the traditional Euro-Canadian ideology that suggests that Ontario was an untouched wilderness and that the First Nations did not make efficient use of the landscape prior to the arrival of Europeans. They were heavily rich in this area. They were spread everywhere and they utilized the land quite strongly. And at this time too, we also see with the longhouses development in pottery, which we start to see differences within the different Aboriginal groups developing their own styles, their own stylistic changes, and pottery was very decorative and almost like an art form that they used to teach amongst the people and also were interpreted based off the individual. So I think that's a summary of it, yeah, and I think that'll be my time. I have more information if you need to contact me.
Yeah.
Contact Kate and I'll fill you in.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Andrea. The bus is just turning around for us, but we will get a copy of Andrea's notes, and we will make, there was a question before about all of the content from today. All of the people's notes, as well as the videos that we're taking, as well as some updated flyovers of the different stops will be all posted online for us. So we'll have access to all of this information going forward. Yep. We've circulated it to different First Nations artists. We had a First Nations piece done for our regional museum, and so there were quite a few artists involved in that process, and we've circulated them, and we're hoping there will be First Nations artists bidding on this site as well. Thank you, token of our appreciation. And if people can just watch oh, is there another question? No. Yeah, the bus is going to actually be coming up, and we're going to have to carefully cross across traffic and board.